Hi, everybody, and welcome. We are so excited to welcome you to our Ben Kinney Leadership webinar. Would you guys do me a favor and get on the bottom of your screens, get on your chat box, and say hello so that we know you can hear and see us? Let's see. Here we go. Hey, Stephanie, Julie, Katie, Lisa Marie, you're probably really close to me. Alex. That's great. Awesome. Let us know where you guys are from. If you've never been on one of these webinars before, welcome. The chat box is definitely where you want to participate. We've got a really packed session today, so we're going to kind of dive right in. And as you guys have questions and comments, please put them in the chat box, and we're going to try to respond to those the best we can. So Ben and I started this the first of the year, and we're delivering these to you monthly. Today I have a very special co-host that I'm going to introduce. Her name's Jillian Snell. Jillian not only leads the Bellingham Ben Kinney team, but she helps to run our entire expansion network of over 25 teams and over 20 million in revenue. So welcome, co-host Jillian.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
We are going to show an awesome picture of you and your family, but I just wanted everybody to know whose face they were seeing. And Sarah Reynolds, our superstar main attraction. Say hello. We're going to come back and introduce you, but say hello really
Awesome.
quick.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Happy to be here.
So excited to have you here. So really quickly, I just want to do a couple announcements, and then we are going to get right into interviewing Sarah. So the first thing I just kind of wanted to jump into is I'm the director of growth, by the way, for the Ben Kinney companies, Ben Kinney brokerages, and we are hiring, we're going to have a couple leadership positions coming up. And so I just wanted to kind of encourage you to privately reach out to me if leadership in the real estate industry is something you've kind of been interested in. Would love to talk to you. And I know that Jillian is always looking for expansion teams as well. And so this is my cell phone. You can call or text me, and you can email me. It's all private. Wanted to also let you know that I'm going to be at the Keller Williams mega camp that's coming in a couple of weeks, and I've set up a couple one-on-one slots. So if you're interested in leadership or expansion or anything like that, and you want to schedule some time with me, I'd love to talk with you. You can just get on calendly.com/via/via mega camp and schedule some one-on-one time, and I'd love to connect with you. For those of you who are new to the leadership mentorship program and you just got on this webinar because Sarah's amazing, I wanted to invite you to join. This is free. This is Ben Kinney and I's way to give back to you. That's probably really incorrect grammar. To give back to you, and you just get on this website, and it gives a brief description. We have a really cool active Facebook group. We have about 1,200 people who are we're all just trying to read a book a month and do this webinar once a month and be better leaders. And it's made me and Ben a better leader just by doing it. So we'd love to invite you to do this. We are going to host this webinar. We're going to do live at Mega Camp. So Mega Camp starts on Tuesday, the 13th of August. Ben and I are going to welcome you really early, 6:30 a.m. on that Tuesday. And we're going to get you to the session on time, don't worry. And we are so excited to do this live with you, meet you, interact with you. There's so many of you guys that we know virtually that we haven't met in person. So please sign up. It's sold out. I released some tickets. So if you're interested in going, I recommend that you sign up now. BenKinneyWebinar.com. Lastly, I'm really excited. We're flying out Brady Sandel to Seattle, and Brindley Tucker is going to join him. And Brady's just grown this incredible business in Palm Springs. And he and Brindley went to the Ritz-Carlton customer service training, and they're really involved in that. And I think it's really cool that he's going to show us how to grow a big business while doing Ritz level customer service. I'm really excited about it. So if you're in the Seattle area and you're going to be around on August 8th, get your tickets. I just checked this morning. We will sell out on that one based on advanced ticket sales. So you definitely want to get your ticket for that one. All right. You didn't care about all that. You care about this, right? This is what you're here for. So today I really want to focus on growth in business and leadership, and I want to do it really diving deep into Sarah Reynolds' journey. I've had the absolute blessing and privilege to get to know Sarah over this last year and consider her a close friend now. And I couldn't think of a better person to join me today than Jolene, because the three of us have one thing in common, and that is that we're spouses and we're parents. And whether you're female or male, and you're running a big business, and all three of us are running really big businesses, and you're trying to balance family and, you know, a significant other and health. All of us are on really cool health journeys, and I'm sure it's something all of us would love to talk about. But I couldn't think of a better group than to have us three on today. So Jolene, like I said, helps to run the entire expansion network for the Ben Kinney companies and also runs Bellingham. I pretty much met Jolene when I met Ben 7 years ago. I used to traipse up to Bellingham and have my coaching sessions with Ben and hang out with Jolene and Aaron, because you guys are all three crammed into that little office. And this is your beautiful family. Jolene, do you want to tell us about your kids and your family?
Thank you. Yes, I was actually just talking to someone today about how the last couple of years I really have invested more time into my family and maybe less time into the business. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really admire Sarah, is because she has 3 children, and I know we're talking about her next. But it's been so fun to experience the other side of life. Building a business came first, and then building a family came second. So it's been
beautiful. Sarah, look at your beautiful family.
I know, aren't they cute?
Baby Lincoln, you guys, how old's baby Lincoln now?
He's 8 weeks today.
8 weeks today. So this woman, this amazing powerhouse, is an 8-week-old. So Sarah, tell us about your wonderful family.
So me and my husband, we've been married 10 years, dated for 5. And so we've been together for about 15. And we have 2 little girls, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and then an 8-week-old boy, Lincoln. So that's our family.
I haven't met Lincoln in person yet.
Yeah, you will. He's coming to Mega Camp.
Oh, and he's coming to Amplify, isn't he?
Yes. Oh yeah. Okay. He'll be around.
I can't wait. And since we're going to talk about the evolution of Sarah and her team, I thought I would show you this. This is, how long ago did you guys take this picture, Sarah?
This was at our 2019 advance, team advance. And our shirts say remarkable for the book, which is our theme for the year. And so that was, let's see. No, it's been a while now, I guess. We're in July. Oh my goodness. So like 9 months ago, 8-9 months ago?
Yeah. And for those of you guys who are in our leadership mentoring program, throw in chat if you guys have read the book Remarkable. It was my book suggestion for the month. Love to know who here has read it. I did. I got to read it. I felt left out because I was doing all of your family pictures and I was like, I want to show my family. So this is my family.
Beautiful.
Well, we all think our families are beautiful, right? All right. Let's get to you guys. So Sarah, you run the Reynolds Team and you're based in Virginia.
Yes.
And do you want to kind of show us a snapshot of what, of right now, what your team looks like and what your projected revenue is for this year before we go back to the beginning?
Sure. So we're based out of Virginia, but we service the entire DC metro market. So the DC metro is a little bit of a unicorn in the way that it's like 3 jurisdictions all really close to each other. So DC's in the middle, surrounded by Maryland and then Virginia. So we're based out of Virginia, but we have agents in teams throughout the DC metro market. And so we've really done like the ink spot style of expansion that Gary talks about, and that we've just kept growing out. We have 5 basic divisions of our team. So the first is our inside sales division, which I consider that to be sort of the heart of our company. I'm really big on lead generation. And then we have our outside sales agents, which are our realtor partners. And then we of course have our amazing operations team, success team that we call them. And then we now have a client care department, which is actually separate than our success team. And then we have our growth and leadership department as well. So that's sort of what we look like. We're right under, I believe, like 50. We also have a VA team as well that support our success team. So I believe we're around 50 people right now in our team family and growing fast.
How many families do you think you'll serve this year? And projected revenue, I know, is about 10 million. What does that translate into units for you?
So yeah, so right now we're like on pace. Our tracker says like 10.4 million for this year for revenue. And then that will end up probably being like around 850 families served. Okay.
So by the way, every time I say a number, what I love about Sarah is she will always correct me, 10.4.
That's a lot.
No, I know. I love it. I am really surprised. My expectation, Sarah, when you were going through that, is that the chat window was going to explode. Is mine just not loading? It was going to explode with everybody asking you to dive into your team structure, and it didn't. My hunch is everybody's dying for you to dive into your team structure. So what I'm telling you all is we're going to work our way back to that, and we will definitely make sure that we cover what success team means and what inside and outside means and all of that. Yeah, now they're coming. I thought for sure it was going to be like a ticker tape when you were talking and everyone was going to be like, tell us exactly how it's structured. Shows what I know. So Jolene, just feel to jump in, feel like you can jump in anytime if there's a really good question that has to do with what we're
Perfect. Yeah, Austin's wanting to know and is curious about what each area does.
And so Austin, we'll go into that. We're going to go back to the beginning. That's what I was saying, and we'll definitely leave time to do that. Here's why, and here's what's really, really important to me that everybody hears. I think sometimes when we hear, when I introduce Ben or I interview Ben sometimes, and I say, oh, he's got a $20 million in revenue for his real estate teams, and then whatever it is, like a $40 million revenue companies, this family of companies. Or I see Sarah has, 10.4 million in revenue coming in this year. I think it's easy to tune out and to just think that is way too big for me. What I want to do and what I try to do in these interviews is go back to the beginning and get to the building blocks that got them there, so that all of you guys watching know, Sarah was you at some point too, right? I mean, she started at ground zero, just like a lot of you guys are. Some of you are kind of halfway there. So I want to go back to the beginning, Sarah, and you have this massive business, but it started with you deciding to become a real estate agent. So do you want to kind of walk us through your progression? And I might just jump in if I want some clarity.
Sure. So in 2006, I got my real estate license. So I did that. So my mom's been a realtor for 30 years. So I grew up, she got her real estate license when I was 4 years old. So I grew up obviously seeing her play the role of realtor. She was mainly, she would sell between like 10 to 12 houses a year to pay for like our private school and our vacations and any extra income that the family needed. And then when we went to college, she started working on possibly building that after she joined Keller Williams. So she was one of the first agents with Keller Williams in Virginia. So there was only 6,000 agents in the company when she joined, which is pretty remarkable. Then in 2006, I was graduating from college, and I was graduating with a business degree, and I knew I wanted to be, I love business. I mean, the minute that I figured out that was my major, it was like, I've been soaked into it ever since. And she needed help because she had back surgery. She couldn't show houses. And so she asked me, why don't you get your real estate license and help me for a little bit while you figure things out? So I did that in 2006, and I started as her buyer's agent. And then 1 to 2 years later, I came to her and I just said, I hate this. I was not loving working with buyers solely. And she kept saying, you're made to be a listing agent. I'm telling you, you're made to be a listing agent. And I was like, but I'm only 22. I was young. And I didn't have a lot of like confidence thinking that I could go into a seller and ask them to hire me to sell their house. And so what ended up happening is she kept encouraging me to do it. And then I went on my very first listing appointment and I loved it. The competitiveness. I mean, in our market, about every listing, they typically will interview 3 to 4 agents. So we're high competition when we go in on a listing appointment. And I just love the going in and competing and winning and helping the seller through the process. So after that, she sat me down and she said, I really think that you're best suited if you want to grow the team, if we want to grow the team. We had an assistant, so it was just me, her, and an assistant, but it was like a very small team. And so she said, I feel like you're gifted in the area of leadership and growing this, and I can see you doing that. And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, I mean, you'd be my boss. And I was like, what? The reality is I'm not really her boss, but what she meant is like, go lead this, go grow this if you would like. So let's see. So that was 2009. So in 2009, we started.
So that was how many years since you started then? So you started in 2006. So that's 3 years in. You're now doing listings. You're working with buyers, and you have this conversation with your mom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it was, I mean, she really pulled a Gary. Like, how when Gary stepped out and hired Mo, and if you look at one of the biggest points of Keller Williams was when he did that. That's really what she did is she pulled a Gary. I mean, many times I'm like, people should be interviewing her and just her humility and also just realizing where she's gifted and seeing obviously strengths. And it's easier to see strengths in our kids, I guess. And I'm one of her kids. So she saw that I could do this. So in 2009 was when that happened. And I immediately started wanting to grow the team. And I hired our first buyer's agent, who's still with me today, Sasha Hoptiak. And what ended up happening was she came on board as our buyer's agent and started working with buyers. And she was 6 months in and immediately started producing and immediately her lifestyle started to change. And she went on vacation. And I got a text message from her and she said, this is the first vacation our family has been able to take in, I think it was like 4 or 5 years. And it was because of your impact and what you did in my life that I'm able to financially be able to do this and spend time with my family. And to be honest, if you look at like the one like impact on me personally and why I'm so passionate about team building and so passionate about the Reynolds team, it was in that moment that I realized the impact that I can have on so many people. And that's my heart. And so that's what ever since then, I've been on this journey of just impacting our industry. I mean, we're in an industry that has like a 95% fail rate. And so 95% of people that get their license today aren't going to be in it in 3 years. And so I knew that I could help them be able to fulfill their dreams and what they're looking for with our team system. So that was in 2009, 10.
Let me ask you a question about that. That's really, really powerful. And I just want to go back a little bit because that feels like a seminal moment. That feels like a moment where you internalize, this is what I want to do. And I'm getting fired up and fed by impacting lives this way.
Yes.
But what you glossed over that I'm curious about, because a lot of the people watching today are single agents thinking about starting a team. And it sounds like you entered this with just an assumption like, well, of course I wanted to start a team. But why did you want to start a team to start with? Why did you even get to the point where you wanted to hire her? What was driving that?
Well, to be honest, I didn't start with, I want to start a team. I actually started with, we had an overflow of business. And so we couldn't serve the business that we currently had. So it was out of necessity that we hired her, to be honest. And then I realized through hiring her and through leading her and helping her that I almost got almost like a high from it. Like I've just so inspired myself from being able to impact her life in such a big way. And so then I realized I want to build a team. I want to do this more. I want to help people more. Because the reality of what I'm really good at is like lead gen systems and marketing and making it rain. Like I can make it rain. And that's one of my key strengths. And so many realtors have such a huge heart to serve people, but yet they don't know how to get business. They don't know how to do it. And so we're sort of like a perfect team in that way. So then after that, I started working on a lot of focus on inside sales. And when we say firm foundation, that's sort of a lot of what I mean is making sure that we had an inside sales team to be able to really make this engine go. And so we started with our very first inside sales agent, and I worked heavily.
2009, Sarah?
No, inside sales, no, that would have been like 2000. So we're in 2010, 11 at that point.
So in 2009, you hired Sasha. Can you just keep walking us through? Because I just want to make sure I'm super clear. So you hired Sasha. And then what happened? What's the progression of hires?
Okay, so hired Sasha. And then after that, we hired, I believe, another buyer's agent. And then at that time, I was focusing solely on listings and leading and trading. At that time, we started focusing heavily on farming, our main area. And so I was going up against agents that had like 20 to 25% market share that we were entering into the market on. And so we started building market share in that market. That was my role, was like the lead listing agent, and then having 2 buyer's agents. And then at the same time in 2000, once that happened, so 2010, we hired our second buyer's agent. 2011 is when I started focusing heavily on inside sales and making sure, because I saw the talent that I had on my team at the time, like with me going on listing appointments, with them going on buyer appointments, they knew how to convert because we worked so heavily on that. But it was like, okay, if we can get more appointments coming in, then I can just be sending them out converting and making sure that they stay in their sweet spot, which was converting.
What about admin, Sarah? During this time, when did you hire your first assistant? And then what did your operations staff look like? So
that's one thing my mom learned from Keller Williams early on. So when I joined her, she had an assistant. Mm-hmm. So the great thing is that that's one piece that I missed in terms of like, I just knew that you always needed an assistant because she told me that right away. Like, you never want to do this without an assistant. And so we had 2 assistants by the time we hired Sasha. So we had our main ops manager, who's with me for 6 years before she stayed home with her babies. I say she's on a long sabbatical. She's coming back. That was my first one that I worked with. And then we hired a second one after that, who was with me a long time as well.
All right, good. I'll keep walking us down the road. I just want to know where I was getting.
Okay, so we had 2 assistants, 2 buyer's agents. I was working listings. My mom was also working listings. And then I started working on inside sales. And so talk to us. Let's start diving into that a little bit, because it sounds like that's it sounds like that's what you think your core foundation is. You mentioned it, is your inside sales team. Yeah, there's 2 things that I believe are our core foundation. So the first is the inside sales team. Okay, so anything to do with making a lead coming in and making sure we're calling a lot. Okay, and then with that is really tight systems with checks and balances on leads and on appointments. And a lot of people don't know what I mean when I say that. And I think, to be honest, I feel like this is the Reynolds Team sort of secret sauce, because we have a system in place where we hold every lead and every appointment accountable, so to make sure that nothing ever gets dropped. And so sometimes a lead or a potential client might actually hop between a couple different agents or people, but that's because our amazing success team is watching every single thing that comes in and making sure that the people that are supposed to be doing what they're doing are actually doing it. Mm-hmm. So you want to trust but verify. Ronald Reagan said that, and I believe it like wholeheartedly. Okay, so having a really tight system to make sure that nothing gets dropped. And so those are the two sort of foundations that we were working on with our systems and then with our ISAs that really catapulted us after the first 5 years. Because once you have that, you can add anything to it.
And so, Sarah, when you were starting this down the road, now I understand you have awesome systems in place. You know, for every lead is held accountable, every dollar is held accountable. But when you started into this, right? Did your systems look different then than they look now?
Somewhat.
Okay.
I think you have to be really careful with like changing things up with all that's happening right now, because I believe in eyeballs on things. And so my director of ops came from the sales side, and she's super, super talented from both operationally and then also on the sales side. She's actually the one, her eyes are on everything in our system constantly. So a lot of the stuff that people want to do in terms of like scalability, anytime we've tried to do something scalability, we lose money because there's not eyeballs on the leads, not eyeballs on the people, and to see what should happen. So it actually doesn't look that different, to be honest. It looks a little different, but not really.
Julian, do you have anything to add to that for you guys?
Well, I'd love to ask Sarah on behalf of the audience too. It sounds like, you know, you have these checks and balances because you have a lot of leads in your system. So the first question would be, Sarah, where are your inside sales and your agents generating the most leads from? So what are those lead sources? And then what's something that any one of us could do, no matter what size of team or individual agent we are, to implement that checks and balances system for our leads?
Okay, so that's a lot to answer there. So I focus on all lead generation. So that's actually my main role still obviously leading and holding my leadership team accountable, but I'm still our director of lead gen. And so right now I generate anywhere between like 300 leads a week is what I average. Okay. And it's a variety of different sources. Our first source is obviously our database we have a large database. My mom's been in the business a long time, but then also we've helped a lot of families over the years. So our database is number one source. And so making sure that we're staying in touch with them. And then number two is our farming. We do a lot of hyper-local direct mail. So if you look at the MREA book, okay, so you have like 12, what I call 12 direct, which is 12 touches to non-Mets. Okay, you have 36 touch to your Mets. Basically, I made sure that we focus on we would take 1 year and focus on one thing, make it super profitable, and then move to the next thing, which I think we're going to dig into execution a little bit later, but that's sort of what we've done. And so making sure that leads are coming in. What I found is that a lot of people will give up, really fast, or they don't really make it really good. So for example, like right now we're generating a lot of leads on Facebook Marketplace. So we're listing our listings on Facebook Marketplace. Okay. And we started that system, and a lot of people would maybe post them on Facebook Marketplace and say, okay, well, we're not getting anything from it. So what happened, so the first thing that happened was like, we're saying we're not getting very many leads. So then I dig in and I look at how we're posting and everything. And then I make tons of tweaks myself, and then we start getting leads. Well, then the ISAs are saying they're not converting. So I'm like, okay, well, what are we saying? So we dig into it. What I found is that a lot of people want to blame the system. So they might say, okay, Marketplace doesn't work. And it's really, they're not taking the time it takes to make something, to master it. And so if you look at all of our lead gen systems, it has taken, we focus on really one at a time, okay? And we really master it. We really make it really well. And then we go on to the next one. And so
about how much time do you think that takes for you and your team to do that, Sarah, with a lead source? So if our audience is trying to get extremely good at one lead source before they move on to, say, Facebook Marketplace or even farming, about how much time should that take?
Well, it depends on the lead source. So farming's going to take a while, meaning like 6 months at a minimum to typically get your first deal. And so knowing that ahead of time, but making sure you're looking at the message and things like that. But I would say anywhere between 1 to 2 months, you got to do a really good test before you give up on it. And then you got to circle back around. So my EA always has like in my calendar, okay, now it's time to circle back around to that system that we put in place 3 months ago. Let's look at it again. Let's make sure it's working. Let's make sure we're saying what we need to say. Let's make sure we're doing what we need to do. So that's really, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but.
Well, what I'm hearing, Sarah, too, is the backbone to everything you're saying is listings. Because yes. At the end of the day, when you're talking about Facebook Marketplace, you have listings to put onto Facebook Marketplace. And
yes,
I feel like the dominoes that I keep hearing are you started as listing agent. And,
yes.
and if you're watching today, by the way, and you're not in real estate, this is easily translatable to whatever industry you're in. There's always one lead indicator activity that's going to be the lion's share of your success. And in real estate, it's listings. And so I have so many teams that say, I want to start a team. And what I love about what you said, and one of the biggest lessons that Ben Kinney has taught me is what you said so casually, and it's so important as well. I didn't necessarily want to start a team. I had to do it out of necessity, Via, because I had so many leads and I wasn't servicing them and I wasn't leveraging and maximizing them. And what Ben taught me is such a powerful lesson is, Via, stop always worrying about what that summit looks like. Sometimes you can only see up until the next base camp. And you just put all of your energy and your activity into that. And when you get there, you're going to see a whole new horizon and you're going to have a whole new base camp to go to. And that's really, I think, fundamentally what I'm hearing from you. And what's driving that engine and what I'm hearing is the foundation, Sarah, is you are a listing team that has learned how to take those listings and use that to fill your engine.
Yep.
To grow.
Yep. So a lot of people don't like my answer, but I'm always like, the foundation is we followed MREA. I mean, and a lot of people are like, well, that's boring. Like, that's a boring answer. I'm like, well, I mean, that's what we did. So leads, listing, leverage is what we did, and making sure that the systems are tight around those things.
Well, what does Gary Keller always say? Come to peace with the boredom of mastery.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Right? Exactly. So.
Okay. So we're growing and we're driving, and what you had told me earlier that I just want to emphasize as we hear this kind of in real time is that you view your first 5 or so years as foundation building. Now we're getting into the rocket ship second 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Let's dive into that. So give or take, and we don't need exact numbers, but at about year 5, what was revenue or units or some metric, because we know that you're going to be at about 10 million this year and about 800 units. Give us an idea of what the 5-year growth has been.
So 5 years ago, I believe that was our first year. I believe it, like we did 1.1 million.
Okay. Wow.
And then so for basically for 5 years, we've grown at a minimum of $1 million in GCI. Multiple years, we've grown at 2 million. So this year we'll grow at about 2.5 million. Because the beauty of having tight lead gen systems is that all you have to do is add people to it and retain them and make sure that you're leading the right way, right? Which we're going to talk about.
I hope everybody watching wrote that down. Can you say that again, Sarah?
Uh-oh.
The beauty of having tight lead gen systems.
Yeah, I forgot now. The beauty of having tight lead gen systems is all you have to grow, all you have to do is add people. And then because you keep doing it over, you know what to do to make the engine go, but what you need is more people and more talent. So then you become a master at hiring and a master at attracting talent. And that's what you focus on. And that's what a big focus of mine now. But I didn't start there. I started as a lead gen master.
Sarah is so good. I want to pause for a moment, and I want you guys that are listening to think about dominoes. First domino, listings. Second domino, tight lead gen systems.
Yeah.
That was the foundation that she grew. Now, when you get to that 5-year mark from $1 million to 10 million, I'm going to take a wild guess and say it's hiring and leadership.
Well, there's a domino missing there that's just as important, which is tight lead conversion systems.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so much is talked about lead gen. Like, where are you getting the leads? Like, okay, I mean, all of us can get leads, like a lot of places. You can get leads a lot of places, but it's more of, do you know how to convert them? And are you becoming a master at conversion of the leads? And that's, I mean, we spent a lot of time in focusing on that, like a year or two in focusing on that with our inside sales team. And many times we have to circle back to it. I mean, this month, that's what I've been focusing on is conversion with my team. And because sometimes you got to circle back to it and make sure that we're making sure we got the basics down, because the dominoes can fall, but those dominoes, sometimes you got to go back to them and make sure that they're working the way that they're supposed to. So that's just as important. And then it leads to hiring talent, retaining talent, and of course, leading and making sure you're.
So let's move into this, because here's what you and I, have talked about a lot, and probably the biggest thrust of this webinar today. I mean, if I could get anything across to everybody, it's this. I think a lot of us know what to do. Certainly any of us that are in real estate watching this, that have read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, we have a blueprint in front of us. We know what to do. So why is it that Sarah's at 10 million revenue and like virtually no one else is in the world, right? Why is it, Sarah? What did you do to actually execute from taking knowledge from a book to execution? And I want to really dive into hiring, because it's usually hiring that's a ceiling for most people. So I want you to dive into hiring philosophies, hiring processes, what that looks like. I want you to dive in, to all of the great things I know you guys are doing with your meetings and with some of your retention issues, and then your personal leadership growth.
So in terms of execution, I mean, honestly, that's definitely one of my things that I do really well is execute. I'm definitely a doer. And so in implementing, so I have sort of an implementation team, because I can't do it all myself, and I'm not good at all of it myself. And so I have a her title is director of marketing, but she's really my implementer. We look at things together, we figure out what we're going to implement, and then we work on that together. But in terms of first starting out with executing, this business and social media has made it even worse. I mean, the distractions around us are so huge, okay? So you go to family reunion, or you're going to go to mega camp, and you're going to hear on stage all the different things that you can do, and you get all excited, and then you have your list of like 15 things, and that's failure number one. Okay, you can't have a list of 15 things. So I never on my plate have more than 3 things that I'm working on, and I'm only at 3 because I have a huge now team of supporters. Okay, when I first started implementing, like for example, the 36 touch, when I first started, that was my only focus that year. We did not do anything else. I didn't let, no salesperson could come in and say, let me talk to you about how you can get leads on this website, or let me do that. No, I'm focusing on 36 touch. That's all we're doing, and we're going to perfect it, and we're going to make it right. Okay. You do that, you build a fence around it, then you move to the next thing. So it's so important. You got to eliminate the distractions. I mean, just eliminate it. Pick what makes most sense for yourself. Really, really master it. Put a fence around it, then move to the next thing before you do anything else. And I think that's what I've done in my business, and that's what I would recommend for anyone to do in terms of execution, is just eliminate the distractions, pick something, and then focus on it, and don't give up. There's not one lead gen system I've started and then stopped. So you gotta not give up.
So good, Sarah. And I, and then I think about when you say that, if you're so focused on, and you have a moat around something, and you're so focused on it, the hiring comes naturally, because you realize in that project and in that initiative who and what you need. And I have always maintained, I was just coaching someone yesterday, and they said, what's your advice on hiring our first assistant? And I said, the clearer you are in the job description, the better your hires can be.
Yeah.
So when you're that in it and you've inserted yourself that much, and I look, Jalene, I look at Ben, when he inserts himself into something, he does that too. When you're that clear, you make good hires.
Yeah. Yep. No, there was one of my friends who leads a team up in Philadelphia. He came to shadow me, and he said that a lot of people say that I'm too into things, like too into the details from afar. They feel like I'm too into like wanting to know how everything works on my team. And he was like, after watching you, that is your number one strength, because no one on your team can come to you and say that, well, this isn't working. Because I typically have either done it. Like I've picked up the phone and called expireds. I've done any job that I'm asking my sales team to do, I've owned and done first. Mm-hmm. And so when you do that, they can't come to you and have excuses, because you know how it should work. And then at times you're gonna have to insert yourself right back to it, right? And so that's huge.
Yeah. Austin Keitner asked a really good question. If you get to a 50% improvement, and it might take a while to squeeze like an extra 10% and then another 10%, are you better off moving to the right thing and using that as a building block, or do you stay with it until whatever goal you've set till the bitter end? Or do you just kind of stay with it till you feel like you can pass the baton? You kind of get it all set and then pass it.
Yes. So I get it all set, and then someone else is obviously in charge of it. I'm not in charge of all these things. But then I'm circling back to it to make sure we're making it better. So every year I look at our top sources that we close deals from. And then my first focus before even adding to is like, how can I make any of those better? So could we get more sign calls if I get more directionals in the ground? How many are we putting in the ground right now? So little things like that make such a difference. So focusing on what you're doing really well right now, make that better, and then move on to add something to it.
So as you're taking these dominoes and you're putting moats around them, and then you're using those, I think of them as a stair step, right?
Yeah.
On the way up. You are hiring people. So let's dive into that a little bit. What's your process? What's your philosophy? I mean, you have an incredible success rate for retention.
Yes.
Better than most independent contractor-based service businesses, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So in the last, I've been at the team building thing now, I guess 10 years personally. And I've only ever lost one producing agent. Okay. And I'm very proud of that. Extremely proud of that.
That's stunning. So as a leader, and remarkable goes into this, right? You have two choices. You can either extract value from others, or you can create value. Okay. And those are the two choices all of us have as leaders. And so my big focus, why I focus so heavily on the lead gen, is because I am a big believer in creating value. People can't go to another team and get what they get on the Reynolds team. It just doesn't exist because of the value that we bring. Now, in addition to that, you have to serve those, right? It has to be about their goal and what they're trying to achieve. So really my leadership philosophy is 100% on serving. And we now, to become a leader on our team, you have to prove that you're willing to serve without the title. And we have a very strict process for that. We have a Reynolds team sort of leader definition. And you've got to prove that you're that and you possess those things before you're ever promoted to any type of leadership position on our team. But it's all about serving those. You don't ever should be thinking about yourself. You should be thinking about the team and how you can serve those around you. And so that's really my leadership, I would say, philosophy is all around service. I take it seriously. It's actually right here on my desk. I have a notebook and it says dream big on it, but inside it are my team's dreams. And so much of my focus is, and I keep this in front of me constantly, this is their 5-year visions for their life. This is what they want to accomplish. And I'm going to work
my butt off and I'm going to make sure that they can accomplish those dreams within the Reynolds team. And I believe so strongly in it. And so, but that's about serving them. And the great thing about it is like my dream's not in here, right? I get so much fulfillment out of seeing them accomplish their dreams that I'm living the best life possible because of that. So that's really sort of my leadership philosophy on that.
That is, you just convicted me. I mean, I was about to jump in and say, yeah, we have that philosophy too. You have to show servant leadership without the title first. But what convicted me is that you have that standard in writing. I mean, you have the definition in writing. That is, that's my lesson today. That's amazing. I mean, as leader has been always, I mean, I live by the 3 fiduciaries. You know, we have to set the expectations / set the standard / cast the vision. And then we have to give them the tools, tech, training, support, coaching that they need. And number 3, we have to inspect what we expect and hold them accountable. And I'm realizing that you've literally got it so that you have leadership defined on your team. That's amazing.
Yeah. And a lot of them, I mean, my leadership team is like, when I was reading Captain Class, I was like, this is my team. Like, I was like, my director of ops, like, first of all, she would like be mortified if I told her she had to come on a webinar with me. Like, she does not want the spotlight. She does not, but she is the absolute probably best in, I would say the best in the industry. But she's so Captain Class. She's a captain on our team, and it's just amazing. So that's for sure the Reynolds team.
Fantastic. So we talk about, all of that. One of the things I do want to dive into is traction, right? You guys have some really cool philosophies about how you run your operations and meetings, what meetings should look like and what the purposes of meetings. Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so we implemented traction, like it's been a while now. And so for those that don't know, that's a book. Traction is a book that you can read, and it's the EOS sort of system of running an organization. So we have a leadership team, and we run what EOS calls level 10 leadership meetings. You can actually put that on YouTube, and there's an awesome like 10-minute video of what a level 10 leadership meeting is. But each leader comes to the meeting prepared, and we IDS the meeting. So during the meeting, so for 90 minutes, basically we focus on identifying problems, discussing them, and solving them. So we walk out with multiple problems solved in 90 minutes, and we keep it tight on schedule, start on time, end on time, and we actually accomplish things in the meeting. I think a lot of times we are on meeting overload, and it's like, we walk away and we're like, what just happened? And so it's a great system to make sure that you're accomplishing things. And then it's also like almost an accountability amongst each other as leaders, to really own each other's role and then help each other. I mean, you don't want like silos, your organization running in sort of silos. One hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. And so it prevents that. So we all come together, and then we work together through that.
I love that. And I love, once again, that you have your standards defined. This is what we do in a meeting, IDS, and everybody talks the same language on your team. I'm getting so many takeaways from this. Jillian, we're going to be dangerous after this.
I think so.
We're going to be marching into Ben and Ross and saying, this is great.
Well, and it sounds like what I'm hearing through this conversation, Sarah, is that you keep coming back to this phrase called checks and balances. And you weren't tying that just to leads, right? You were tying that to hiring, to expectation conversations, to meetings. And so do you have any tangible checks and balances that you could share with the audience in relationship to, let's just say your meetings? You get together for this leadership meeting, and you share a lot of great ideas, and you come up with a lot of problems to solve. How do you take that, and how does each person get that traction and have accountability through it?
So they have to report back. I mean, no one wants to come to the leadership meeting and they had tasks, like everyone walks away with basically a to-do list for that week, based on what we IDS and what department it falls under. And I mean, no one wants to come into the meeting and didn't do their job. I mean, one thing that's very sort of a core you can call it core value. It's not in our core value, but you have your core values that you post online, post out to the public. And then you have your like true core values. Like if someone comes into your company and then they're looking and they're like, okay, well, this is what a core value of your team is. I mean, for ours, it's like we're doers. Like we're a team of doers. I mean, we have fun. We mix in fun when we're doing, but you don't want to come to the leadership team and leadership meeting and not have done what you're supposed to do. And so I think it's easier in a one-on-one setting to like talk that person out of that you didn't do your job. Whereas if you're together as a leadership team and you're all relying on one another, because each department has to have the other one. Mm-hmm. And so that in and of itself creates checks and balances, because our OSA team, our sales director obviously can't lead sales if there's not sales to be led. So the inside sales department is automatically accountable to our outside sales. So it's like it creates checks and balances in and of itself, the way that we do it in a more group setting.
So it sounds like you create a lot of public transparency, and
yes.
There's accountability through that transparency.
Yes, correct. Much better said. And quicker. Good job.
And Amy was asking how many people on your leadership team, and are each of the 5 divisions represented in that leadership meeting?
Yeah, so we have six on our leadership team. And then we have also like a separate leadership team, which is our agent leadership team, which is basically, ALC, we stole it from Keller. We have our own sort of ALC that we meet once a month with our top agents on our ALC, make sure that they're out grinding it out, selling houses. We want to make sure that we're doing the best for them as well, and help building we focus on their wealth building and their quality of life and things like that in those meetings to make sure that we're doing a good job there.
Hey, Sarah, do you think that your core value of being doers, I love that. And I don't know if you listen to Stanley podcast, Paul Stanley.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's my favorite. That's my favorite podcast.
Me too. It's one of my on leadership, right? We'll post
yes.
Facebook group, and he talks about there's two types of people, thinkers and doers. And
yes.
I'm also a doer. And so I'm wondering, is that a hiring philosophy? Do you look for doers? Do you look for clues? Do you go through that in the interview process?
Yeah. So in terms of hiring, like we hire 100% to values. So nothing else.
Yeah.
Yes, we're looking at experience, but to be honest, we've had not as good of success with like people with experience because they've learned the wrong way of doing things. But what we mainly look at is what's their heart, because I can teach everything else. I can teach someone how to convert, like my ops director can teach someone how to, do their job. But what we can't teach is if they match our values. So first and foremost, we're looking to that. And then from that, we hire based on making sure they match us. And part of that is doing. So we're looking at, have they accomplished things as they've gone on, looking at their track record.
That's fantastic. I want to kind of wrap up this part, because I know what's going to happen on Q&A. That we're going to get stuck in the weeds of a lot of details and specifics. And it's really important for me to get some fundamental big questions out, right? Those are more exciting to me than what your org chart looks like, and how many people or whatever. And I want to know, at this stage, what do you think your biggest fail has been?
So there's a lot of them, but I would say that's a hard question because there are a lot of them, but it really comes down, my biggest failure has been putting someone in a leadership position before they've proven that they are a servant leader. And it created a mess on our team, like a complete mess. And I almost lost half the team. I didn't, thanks to God, or it was just crazy. But part of it was putting someone in a position of leadership before proving themselves as a servant leader. And really they had their own intentions more than they did the team and others. And so I think my biggest failure now is looking back now, no one can get promoted until they have proven servant leadership. And we mainly promote from within. So far, I've never hired a leader from the outside. And they have to prove themselves. Like our director of inside sales, he was the leader for about 1.5 years before he got that title and the pay to go with it. And it was, I sat the ISAs down one-on-one, and I said, who do you believe is the leader of this team, of your department? And each of them said his name. And until they did that, I didn't promote him. And he had to show that he was willing to serve those around him. And once he did that, he got, for a while, it wasn't like for a week. Once he did that, then he got promoted. But that's one, my biggest failure was not doing that, was promoting someone before they proved themselves.
Well, I can beat you. Ben can beat you. I had to freaking build a huge team and work with Ben for 6 years before he hired me.
Yeah, that was a big one.
All right, that was good. What do you know now that you wish you would have known 5 years ago? Crickets.
Well, there's a lot 5 years ago. I think, to be honest, like just, I think really building, I've gotten, in the last 2 years, I've gotten really good at building leaders around me, but it took me a long time to realize the power of that, and the power of spending a lot of time with a smaller group of people. If you look back at my job description like 2 years ago, you guys would be like, whoa. I mean, I did a lot of jobs, a lot of jobs. And I kept things. I didn't want to give up control of things. And now looking back is just like, you have to hire or promote leadership on your teams, but then you have to take the time to develop those leaders. They're not going to, just like a lead gen system, your leadership on your team isn't going to be like, know what to do right away. And so making sure that you're investing in them. I wish I would have started that a lot earlier. So
do you have 10 minutes after 12 to stick around and answer some Q&A?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, good. Because I want to end the interview before we jump into Q&A. And Jolene, if you want to start stacking up some questions in your head based on what they're all asking. And you guys feel free to type them in. My final question is, what are we going to see from you next? I am dying to ask this question. What is next? What is on the horizon? What is the Reynolds Empire going to look like next?
So, yeah, I've got a vision, that's for sure. So, yeah. I mean, you're going to see, I don't believe in expanding small, like meaning like, so going into a market and then just taking a little bit of market share. So you will see us in probably all major cities and the dominating team in all major cities in metropolitan. I mean, I'm 35. So I was talking to my leadership team on Monday and I'm like, okay, guys, I've been at this team building thing now for about a decade. And now I'm on to this, I'm looking at the next decade, what we're doing. And so I'm inspired by my team and those that I lead, and that's what they want to do. If you look at this Dream Big book, yep, they've got some dreams, and a lot of them have to do with, they want to go, many of them have areas that they want to move their family to in a few years when their kids are older, things like that, and they want to go dominate markets around the country. So we're going to do it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Before we go on to some Q&A, let me know if you guys can see this. Can you see that big, beautiful blue screen? Because Sarah and I have something personally, one of the cool things, by the way, I think of all three of us here, and certainly of Ben Kinney, is we all fundamentally believe that, running multiple businesses is a good thing. And I went into business recently with 9 of my closest colleagues, and Sarah's one of them. And we created an event for women called Amplify. And Sarah and I, and let's see if we can list it all by heart. Wendy Papazan, Carissa Ocker, Seychelle Van Poel, Corinne Nguyen, Sarita Dua, Diane Griffin, Kimberman Keaty, Tiffany Fikes. Oh, that was good.
That was really good.
We are all hosting this event, and I just wanted to personally invite you guys to come. If you are a woman watching this webinar, you should come because if you're attracted to this webinar, then this event is for you. I posted an amazing video that Sarah did on our leadership page, and I don't know, Sarah, do you want to share any personal, any experiences from the group or anything?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, it's been phenomenal being part of this group, and we are on a mission to amplify the voice of women in business, and that's one thing that doesn't happen a lot. And it really hasn't happened much at all. It's a group of women coming together to amplify one another and then turn around and amplify other women. And so that is the focus of this event, is to really, there's some powerhouses. I'm telling you, like, sometimes I want to send some of the male powerhouses text message and be like, so I fed a baby today for 20 hours. I led an organization doing 10.4 million in GCI. I have 2 other kids. I'm like, all the things that we have on our plates as women, right? What did you do? No, yeah. Like, joking around, obviously. But what I'm saying is that us women, we're full of talent. And a lot of times, and really many times more talent in terms of all that we're juggling on our plates. And so we need to be amplifying one another and supporting one another. And so many women, sadly, want to tear each other down. And that's not what this event is. If you want to tear women down, do not come.
We got the name originally because of the Barack Obama administration. The females in the cabinet started noticing that when the males were contributing in meetings, they were like, hey, what Fred said, or, they were amplifying their colleagues. And we started doing it, didn't we, in Gary's top agent group, and it just kind of spread, it spread to our lives. And we are just constantly focused on amplifying everybody else. And it's a super supportive environment. And it's an environment that I think recognizes that some of us are just wired different than what the traditional woman, people's preconceived notions of what that looks like. I mean, the 3 of us here on this webinar have 8 children. I have 3, you have 3, Jolene has 2. And I mean, that's a lot of lives that we're impacting at our houses every day. And then we come into our works. I now have, upwards of 1,400 people that I'm in some level responsible for leading. Same with Jolene, same with you. And so these are big numbers, and yeah. It's important that we put our oxygen mask on and take care of ourselves. So, all right. I am going to toss it over to Jolene and have Jolene take over Q&A.
Awesome. Well, we have a lot of great questions, actually, and keep them coming. If you want to restate your question, feel free to type it into the chat. But one of the biggest questions ties back to your checks and balances for your leads and your lead sources and your lead conversion. And we know that's a huge topic. So maybe you could give us just 1 or 2 things of what you implement into your daily life, as much responsibility as you have with being a mom and running a business, of how you still pay attention to those details.
So, tracking and knowing your numbers. I mean, Via made a joke about, me correcting my numbers. It's because I look at numbers pretty consistently. Constantly, actually. So if you once you've tracked your numbers consistently, you know what they should be, and then you sort of know what you need to dive into. So for example, I know what our listing conversion should be, and it should be increasing as we all get better, but we just dropped in June. And so I'm back to focusing on listing conversion with my team. That's what we did yesterday. And my team was back at getting listings today at 7% commission today. And so because we focused on conversion, because I knew what the number should be, and then I'm watching them. I don't wait for them to get really bad. And a lot of times what will happen in business is that you should catch something before it gets really bad. Okay, so but part of it is you have to be a student of your numbers and knowing what they should be. And so that's where I know where to insert myself personally. Now, I always have administrators. You never want a salesperson without an administrator, because a salesperson does not have the strengths. They have the best heart for serving people and the best heart for working with people, but they will let balls drop over and over and over again. And so many teams I talk to, they're expecting their salespeople to be people that God didn't make them to be. which have skills that like be detail oriented and be like, and well, they're not going to be. They're going to drop the ball. They're going to forget things. Okay, that's how they're made. And so team them up with someone that is opposite of that, and then that's where the checks and balances really come in. And so that's, if you look at all of our systems, it's a combination of those things.
So 2 sets of eyeballs on everything is what
everything. Yes, yes, yes.
Gotcha. So having 2 sets of eyeballs, and when you've got all of these leads coming in and multiple lead sources, I don't hear a lot from people that they lack leads, right? That doesn't seem to be a major issue. I think it causes a problem, right? When you have too many leads, because you treat them like a luxury.
Yes.
And you're not inspecting to see what the process looks like. How many leads do I have coming in? What's the conversion on those to appointments, and then appointments to contracts? So that flow right there, do you have a simple system that any one of us could follow to take it through that flow for tracking and managing our business?
So, I mean, we have, like, I remember one of the best things that happened in my business is I was working with a coach, and I was talking to them about, so the foundation of our business is obviously getting coached and mentors. So I have lots of coaches and mentors in my life. And one of them said, we were struggling with buyer conversion. And he said, well, do they know what to do when they get a buyer agreement signed? And I said, well, yeah, they should know what to do. Like they should search for houses and go show them, right? Like that's like, to us, that's like, well, yeah, they should know what to do. And he's like, no, but is that in writing in a plan? Like they know and they're following the plan. And I'm like, oh no. And he's like, everything in your business needs to have a plan attached to it. And so if you look, every single lead, every single client always has an activity plan attached to it. Like to every single, and so in the plan, there's checks and balances in the plan.
Do you have like a digital playbook or like a hard copy one?
Say that again?
Do you have like a digital playbook, like a SOP playbook?
Yeah, they're activity plans in a CRM system basically, and so all that's what it is. But there's never one without one.
Got it. Yeah.
There's always, and then in the plan, there's multiple. There's not just one person that has tasks in the plan. Okay. There's multiple team members that are looking at the leads and looking at the people. And so that's what, if that helps. So depending on what process they're in, they're tied to a plan that applies to that process.
That makes sense. So you're leveraging the CRM, but you're also making sure you have a couple people to have eyes on it throughout the process.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I love what you said about getting everything in writing. I think that's what you said anyway, yes. Right?
Yes.
Where it's not in writing, it doesn't get implemented. It doesn't become a thing that helps you grow.
Well, it's also not a business. Like if you don't have everything in writing and systems to go along with it, you don't have a business. Correct. You're running around like without a true business that can actually run with, like I can step out and take 8 weeks off to be with my baby. And we ratified 98 contracts, right? So it's like that can happen, but it can't, well, that was 1 month actually. But what I'm saying is that can happen. I have a true business because I have systems in place that can run without me being involved. Now, of course, I can make them better. My role is growth. So if I want to stay the same, I can back away. But if I want to keep growing, which we do, that's why I insert myself in making it better.
And you talked about leadership, right? And you talked about how you have written leadership standards, a definition for that, for their leadership progression. Could you share that with us as well?
Yeah, so I can definitely, I probably have it here somewhere. We have I have like doodles on it, but like we have a Reynolds Team leadership definition that's in their contract. I can send this out, or I'll put it in the Facebook group.
There you go.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Of what we define as a leader, and we need to make sure before someone gets a promotion, they have to have shown that they're this before they are promoted.
I love that. That's really one of my favorite takeaways is how much you have in writing. I always run around here saying the job isn't to get it done. The job is to get it done and document. Then it's done. I say that all the time. I love it.
No, it's true. Yeah.
I think a big hot topic for many people is retention, right? They've started growing a team and maybe they're new at it. They've been doing it a few years. And retention can be very challenging for people, especially as their team members grow and maybe even outgrow them. So what would you say maybe your top 3 things are that you focus on with your agents to retain them to your team?
So making it about creating value for them. I mean, I don't struggle with turnover, or I don't struggle with people leaving, because they know that I'm constantly working on how to make it better for them. It's all about them, not about me. Like, so many times I'm in rooms with other people that are either wanting to lead a team or leading a small team, and I cringe when they talk sometimes, because I'm like, that's not making it about that. Like, you talking, like, I mean, this might be, I don't want to get in a dicey topic, but like talking about, for example, like what someone is bringing to the table, like it's all about what they're bringing to the table, right? To your team, and how you can make money from them, versus that has never been in my language. Like, I don't talk like that. I don't hire someone. It's more about what value can we bring. Now, they have to be talent and they have to live up to our standards, obviously, to be part of the Reynolds team, but it's all about the value that we bring, that we give to them. And so making sure that we're all, and a lot of it comes down to lead gen systems, in my opinion, and that's why the original MREA was you don't hire until you have an overflow of business.
100%.
That's the original, that was the original blueprint for how to build a team. I think a lot of people have gotten away from the original blueprint. And so when you get away from it and then you're focusing on other things, then that's when people leave, is because they're not seeing the value there. So I think number one, that, and then of course, in terms of, I have a hard time putting like leadership in terms of words and with retaining, but I am involved with my team and have relationships. And obviously I can't have like really close relationships with each person, but they see me, I'm involved. I don't do a ton of traveling and speaking. And that's why a lot of people are like, where'd you come from? Or who are you? And the reason is because I focus a lot on my team and my people. I mean, a lot of my time is spent on that versus like traveling the country. And nothing against that. I mean, that's my heart. My heart is, and so that helps retain people too, is because they see me, I'm present with them.
So we're at 9 minutes over. Do we have any other questions, Jolene, or?
I think just one other question here. It's more on the personal side. And I think this is an important one, especially going into your Amplify event with a lot of females. How is it that you balance the work life with being a mom? And how does that work with your schedule, maybe more specifically?
So, I mean, I'm figuring out this new 3 kids schedule. So I'm 8 weeks in. So I'm definitely
figure it out, please.
So sadly, I mean, I'm big on being transparent. So I've rocked it in the business world. I've rocked it, I feel like, as a mom and as a wife. I've let my health and my own self take the brunt of it. And so I met with my EA here recently and to go over my schedule, my personal assistant. And I said, my focus coming back. So I just was away for 8 weeks. My team really did an amazing job, and they showed me that I can take time to focus on my health and myself, and make sure that that's a priority. So I break my schedule into, like, I'm a big believer in focus. Like, the one thing I feel like is my book in terms of like focus. So every day I sort of have a focus. So Monday is like my leadership day, where I'm focusing all on my leadership team. I have my leadership meeting. I have my one-on-ones with my leadership. So it's all about that. Tuesday is typically focused on lead conversion and getting ready for my meeting on Wednesday. Wednesday is my meeting. And then also spending time with the team. So that's when the fun Sarah comes out, because I do have a fun side. And then Thursday is all about lead gen. So marketing, lead generation, and then Friday is whatever I didn't get to. But my schedule is, I'm home every night by about 5:30. I do have a really awesome hands-on husband and an amazing nanny that helps me. So I leverage myself at home as much as I can, to where when I'm at home, I'm spending all my time is fully focused on the kids and my husband. I don't know if that helps, but I've got some changes to make on that front too, though. So that's for sure.
No, that really, really does help. And I want to thank you so much for being on here. I know that probably a lot of the attendees are thinking two things. They're thinking you are incredibly valuable and this wasn't long enough because they have more questions. So maybe if you have any spare time with your schedule, like you just said, you could jump on our Facebook page and answer some questions. For those of you asking, if you don't know what our Facebook page is, that tells me you're not members of our leadership mentoring program. And you have to be a member of our leadership mentoring program to be on our webpage. So get on bkcoleadershipprogram.com and join. It's free. We're not going to spam you. We just, you know, Ben and I just really, it's really part of our Ben Kinney Company's mission and vision to just share with others. And we believe that that attracts the right people to our worlds that need to be in our worlds, which is why I am sharing the screen again. If you love this conversation and you continue to get a lot out of the conversation, maybe we're a fit, and you know, we're hiring for some leadership positions, like I said, and certainly expanding. So please reach out and I'd love to talk with you. And thank you very much, ladies, both of you, for your time today.
Yes, this was awesome.
Thank you. Thanks, Thea. Thanks, Sarah.
Yes.
It was really awesome. All right. Have a great day.